This is Heather Vickery with the Brave Files podcast, and you are listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 284, Snatch Movie Review. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. This week we're going back to the year 2000. So, Derek, you know how hard it is for me to say that. Go back to 2000.
All I keep hearing is the Conan O'Brien in the year 2000 when that was in the future.
I know. That's like me. I'm permanently stuck in 1989. So go figure. So Derek, you wanted us to go back and watch the movie Snatch. And we're going to review it here shortly. But first, what is new in the world of pop culture for you, my friend?
Well, I actually had an opportunity to go and see live theater this week.
Oh, very cool. Oh, I'm a fan of live theater. What did you go see?
Well, we actually went to, it was more to the symphony. But so the movie Amadeus, Oscar winner from the 1980s.
1984, yep.
Yeah. So it's celebrating its, what would that be? 40th anniversary?
40th anniversary this year.
Yeah. And so as a part of its 40th anniversary, they're basically doing the live tour where they're showing the movie and a full symphony orchestra and choir are doing all of the music, the entire score, all of the musical components for the movie basically have been stripped from the film print and you get the live performance. So we had a chance to go and see that and it was fantastic.
Do they do other movies too?
They do. I noticed in the program coming up, the next one they're doing is Pirates of the Caribbean, and then they're doing Frozen. I guess they throw in some kids ones now and then.
I want to see like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think they did one of the Star Wars and one of the Star Trek movies in years past. So that's why I said to my wife, you know what, this was a lot of fun. We need to.
I hope it was Wrath of Khan.
I honestly don't remember.
Probably not.
But anyway, so this one was Amadeus. So it was fantastic. I mean, the movie itself is quite good, but it added that extra layer to have the live orchestra and the choir. Oh, yeah. And the movie runs 2 hours and 45 minutes, and they actually did an intermission about halfway through. Again, the performers need a little bit of a break as well, and it's a chance for the venue to make some money off concessions. So it was about 3 hours all told, but no, it was worth it. It's not something you do every day, and it was certainly a little more pricey than just going to the movie theater, but it was a nice chance to get out. We had actually really good seats. So no, that was a lot of fun. And so I'll keep my eye out. If I see that they're doing any of those upcoming with movies that you and I might like say, Star Wars or Jaws or Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that. I'll let you know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, and then, so we had the Oscars were just this past weekend, and in anticipation of the Oscars, I tried to watch a couple of the movies that were nominated for the big awards. So I had a chance. We'll talk about the Oscars in a second, but I had a chance to watch two of the movies this week. The first one I watched was a movie called The Holdovers. It stars Paul Giamatti, and it's basically it's a period piece, takes place in the early 70s, and it's about this like prep school where a couple of the kids and a couple of the teachers basically get stuck at the school over the Christmas break, and it's a character study, and they get to everybody learns a little something about themselves. One of the characters that's in it, one of the characters in the story is the cook. Her son was a student at the academy and he had been killed in Vietnam. And so she's obviously going through some loss. And then the performer actually won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. So
yeah, I knew her from I watched the series Only Murders in the Building, and she's in that show.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I knew her from when I was watching.
Well, she was fantastic. Yeah. And her Oscar acceptance speech was great. She had won all of the awards leading up to this, so I don't think it was much of a surprise, but no, the movie's great. It was, again, it's a little slow, but that's the kind of movie it is. Performances were fantastic, so I was glad I had a chance to watch that. Then another one I watched on Amazon, I didn't get to watch this one until after the Oscars because I actually don't think it dropped on Amazon until after the weekend, but it's called American Fiction. And this movie was amazing. This A+ across the board. Basically, the premise of this one is, and again, it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor. The Best Screenplay. The author, the person who wrote the screenplay, ended up winning the Oscar for that. So it was nice to see it get recognized. And the idea is the main character is a black guy, and he's an author, and he's writing very like heavy literary works, but he's not making a lot of money. And they're basically saying, we want, quote, black books. He goes, I'm a black author. How much? What else do you want? They're like, no, we want like, thugs and rappers and people getting shot by police. And he's like really angry that that's what the white audience wants. So he basically says, fine, I'll give you the drivel you want. And so under a pseudonym, he puts out a book that's like as super stereotypical and offensive as you could think of, and white America eats it up.
Of course.
And so it's this. The movie itself is a satire. And it's fantastic. The performances are amazing. The story is fantastic. The message is great. There's a lot of really witty humor in this. And no, I really, really enjoyed this one. If you have Amazon, definitely give this one a watch. American Fiction. It'll blow you away. It was fantastic. And I had a chance to watch a documentary series on Netflix.
For 40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
Just one documentary? It's like you're slacking.
Well, it's a series. There were 8 episodes.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case.
45 minutes to an hour a pop. Wow. So it was a busy week. So it's called Full Swing. It's about the Professional Golf League. Okay. This is the second season. And basically what happened is, for a number of sports, the television cameras have been following around the top athletes, and they do this for almost every sport now, where they follow them around. They have all this access behind the scenes, and then at the end of the season, or basically at the beginning of the next season, they put out this documentary series where you get to see like, well, what happened last year. Now, for me, I like golf, but I don't play golf, and I don't watch golf in real time. Like, I'll watch the Masters or something, especially if I got a little bit of money riding on it. But this to me is interesting because it helps me understand sort of who the big players are and who maybe some of the not so big players are. And it talks about a lot of the behind the scenes drama and things that are going on. And no, it's fascinating. I know they've got one on Formula One race car that is apparently a ratings bonanza. People are just in love with it, and the ratings for F1 racing has just gone through the roof because of this Netflix series. And I know that they've done this with other sports as well. ESPN does it with a lot of the other sports, but this one is Full Swing. It's about professional golf. It's a second season. There's 8 episodes. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Again, as someone who doesn't really know that much about golf, I found it was very educational, and it just introduced me again to more of the professional golfers and the their world and their life and all that good stuff. One of the interesting stories they follow is one of the guys, he basically says, he goes, look, professional golf, you got about 100 golfers. Somebody has to be the 100th golfer. And he goes, that's me. And he goes, I know I'm never going to win, but he goes, I'm good enough to be the 100th golfer. And so he's actually become a fan favorite because he was featured in the first season. So second season, they follow him around again. And it's interesting to sort of see how his life has changed for better and for worse. So anyway, that one's called Full Swing. Second season dropped on Netflix.
I remember you talking about season 1 previously on the podcast. It rings a bell with me. So
yeah, it's very I mean, cool. You know me, I love a good documentary,
you do,
regardless of the topic. But if it's a sports documentary, that just piques my interest even more.
I'd like to share something with you that happens every night at bedtime.
Oh, my.
It's not what you think. Don't worry, I'm not going to go there. So every night in my house, when it's time to go to sleep, my wife always puts on the show Friends in the bedroom. She likes to fall asleep listening to the show, apparently, So I have to listen to this stupid show every night before I fall asleep. And like, I will say, like, back in the day, I did watch the show occasionally, during its initial run, but I wasn't like a super huge fan of the show. I don't know about you.
No, I wasn't either.
Yeah, I didn't watch it religiously or anything like that. So I guess I wasn't enough of a regular watcher to pick up on everything that was going on in this show. But having the opportunity to rewatch it like all the time, almost every night, I got to say something about Friends. Ross sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. He's whiny. He's selfish. Like, he's unethical. He dated one of his students, for crying out loud. He's one of the worst characters in TV history. I hate that guy. And then in the final episode, Jennifer Aniston, like, she goes from person to person. I don't know if you ever saw the finale. She goes from all the characters and she talks to them individually to say how much she's going to miss them, And then she doesn't talk to Ross. And he gets all whiny about it. He just doesn't even see it's just too hard for her to even try to say goodbye to the guy. Like, he's such a selfish, whiny little gosh. This is what I have to endure every night of my life, I tell you. Oh,
but have you considered that for you to like some of the other characters as much as you do, they need someone to act off of. They need a foil. And I find that to me was always my understanding of Ross's role, is he's there to make the other characters more likable. It's like Lisa Simpson. I never really cared for Lisa Simpson's character, but Bart Simpson and Homer Simpson wouldn't be nearly as interesting if they didn't have Lisa there as a balancing.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, and like, he had a few funny moments throughout the series. Like, a couple ones that stand out. Like, I remember when he was dating Rebecca Romaine Stamos on the show, and she was like a messy pig, and he goes to her apartment, and that was pretty funny. They're like making out, and his hand like dips into like chocolate or something like that. It was pretty funny. And then when he got his teeth whitened and stuff, like, there was funny parts, but I mean, overall,
the one where he wears the leather pants and he
yes,
that's one of my favorite. I mean, I didn't watch the entire run of the show, but I've been catching it in reruns over the years. But that one was actually just on not too long ago where they all do the New Year's resolutions, right? And he's like, I'm gonna do something new every day, and he decides to get the leather pants, and then he goes on the date and he takes the pants off in the bathroom and he can't get them back on. That has me in hysterics every time. That to me is the best Ross episode.
Yeah, but overall, he sucks. So one thing that apparently doesn't suck is this.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
So, Derek, since we're doing a review of the movie Snatch, I thought I would do a Snatch joke for you.
Okay. Get the censors. Get ready.
This has got censor beep written all over it. Okay, Derek, did you know that Kellogg's once had a cereal called Snatch?
I did not.
Yeah. You open it up, you dump out the cereal, and
I think that's the funniest joke you've told on this show ever. That's awesome. They have the Big Mac, and we have the Big Mick.
Help again. Get off the island.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
That guy. Joe Louis was 76 years old.
Well, I know you used to work at the Chuck E. Cheese, right?
What is that, real velvet?
Just let yourself.
Oh, that boy is good. That boy can sing.
That could work.
Sexual chocolate.
Oh, I've heard those lines before.
What do you know from Funny? All right, Derek, so you wanted us to go back and watch the movie Snatch. I had never seen this movie. It's from 2000. So maybe you can just kick us off, as I usually will ask you to do when you pick these movies. Why this movie? Why did you want to go back and watch and review this film of all the films that you could pick?
Sure. So I've actually had this on my short list for quite some time. So when we were getting ready for the last show, I just pulled up the list and went, you know what? I've skipped over this one a few times. I think it's about time. And it was actually on TV like maybe a month ago, and I caught just a little part of it, and I was sort of like, you know what? I really like this movie. I'm going to go back and rewatch it. But knowing we were probably going to do it for the podcast, I thought I'll wait until that happens. So I had a good time this week going back to rewatch it. So you know me, I like a good movie, a good bank heist movie, or a good robbery movie, con artists, that kind of movies, anything sort of Ocean's 11, that kind of feel. And this movie is a lot of that. It's about some gangsters, and they steal a diamond, and then it's this whole bunch of different characters as they're all trying to get their hands on this diamond as it keeps changing hands in weird and unusual ways. And I think the cast in this movie is great, which I'm sure we're going to get into. Guy Ritchie is the writer and director. I believe this was his second major film, his first one being Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which was also really good, but was very much more of a low-budget movie. And my understanding is that with the success of that, he was able to get a lot more money for his next film, which was this one, which is how he was able to get people like Brad Pitt and Benicio del Toro, who are obviously much bigger names and well-known actors, to come in and participate. But from what I understand, these actors actually really wanted to work with him because everyone really seemed to like his first movie, which I also liked. So I thought I was pretty sure you hadn't seen this. In fact, I was pretty sure you probably had never even heard of this movie. It's again, Guy Ritchie is one of those directors that has an interesting style that is somewhat unique. And if you're a fan of his work, you can really sort of see where his signature moves are. And this is certainly him defining what those things are. And I personally enjoy it. I like most of his movies, most of the ones that I've seen anyway. I've really enjoyed. And the way he his dialogue, the way he develops these characters, the way that he chooses to not just use traditional linear storytelling, how it's constantly bouncing back and forth between all of these characters, which at first can seem very overwhelming, but as the story progresses, you really get to understand how all these characters interact with each other. I just thought this is a different kind of movie than we traditionally watch, and I thought it might be something that you would enjoy. If you didn't enjoy the movie as a whole, I thought at least you might enjoy and appreciate the creative process of it, the way it was shot, the way the dialogue came together. But anyway, I knew I was going to enjoy it, so gave me an excuse to go back and watch it again. So with that, tell me, what were your sort of first impressions?
Well, your instincts were correct. I did enjoy this movie.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Maybe a little bit of style over substance, but I thought, overall it was pretty good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was interesting. You mentioned about the story with the diamond, but really this movie is about two stories kind of going on at once. Because there's that whole boxing story, which I'm sure we'll talk all about both of them.
Yeah.
But it's how they're both all intertwined together and the characters are kind of all intertwined. But the one thing I want to talk about first, I just want to get this out of the way. What's with the movie's title, Snatch? Sounds like a movie you'd find on Pornhub.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a play on the dirty interpretation, but even in the movie, they talk about stealing something, and he says just snatch it, like clearly implying like, hey, this word could be a dirty word in some context. It could be considered dirty slang in some context. And that certainly probably helped the marketing a little bit, gave people what's this all about? It gave people a reason to give it a second glance. Why not? Why not be playful about it? Why call it Diamond Thief when you can call it, Snatch? Although I did read that in some of the international marketing, they had to call it Snatched with an ED or an apostrophe D at the end of it, just given how much more prevalent the slang term is in certain parts of the world. So,
yeah, because again, like that's only half the story though, the diamond snatch.
Yes.
There's a whole boxing story going on too. So again, it seemed a little odd to me. So what I decided to do was to do a little bit of research on the word. Okay. And so I turned to our good friends at the Urban Dictionary.
Oh boy, we need the censor to get ready again.
Yeah, this has got censor beep written all over it as well. So first of all, it can be used as a verb, like you mentioned, to steal, like see boost or jack. For example, I snatched $1,000 necklace from this house on Fargo Street. Okay. Yeah. Another verb usage is in weightlifting. Like this is an Olympic weightlifting movement in which the weight is moved from the floor to a position over the head in one movement. It can be used as a noun or a verb in this sense. All right. Like there's variations like the hang snatch and the power snatch. Like for an example would be, Ivan can perform a 200-pound snatch very well. And then of course there's the noun, which is a slang term. And an example might be like, you're so wow. Anyway, so that was a little bit of research that I thought it's all from Urban Dictionary. It's official apparently. But I want to talk a little bit about the box office on this film. So the top 10 movies in 2000, the number one movie that year was How the Grinch Stole Christmas. That's the Jim Carrey live action one. Okay. Crappy movie. Mission Impossible 2 came in second, followed up by Gladiator and The Perfect Storm and Meet the Parents. Rounding out the top 10 were X-Men, Scary Movie, What Lies Beneath, that movie sucked, Dinosaur, I don't even know what the hell that is, and Aaron Brockovich. So Snatch doesn't even show up in the box office chart for 2000 because it was released on December the 8th in 2000 and it grossed like nothing. But it did take in just over $30 million the following year, 2001. So, or should I say it snatched $30 million at the box office. I see what you did there. But that was good enough for 79th place at the box office. It finished just behind such gems as What's the Worst That Could Happen and Not Another Teen Movie. Although it did finish ahead of such luminaries as Osmosis Jones and Max Keeble's Big Move. I've never heard of either one of those movies.
No.
Judging by the box office, neither of you. So
I was going to say, I'm looking here. I can't remember if you just said this or not, but it said it had a budget of £6 million. And so, like, what's a pound? Almost double a US?
Yeah, I guess almost double it.
Let's even say this is probably in the neighborhood of a $10 million budget.
$10 million, probably close.
Yeah, it says gross Canada, US 30 mil, and worldwide approximately 80 mil. So it made some money. I mean, it probably didn't make what they were expecting. But again, if this was his second feature film, and this is a new director coming out of the gate, like, you don't have unrealistic expectations about their success. And I think that what this did long term was it started to really cement his style. Like, now you had two really good movies that came out that people really enjoyed, and it sort of was like, okay, well, now I know what to expect. So as he put out a couple more movies, they started to do better and better.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's pretty good. So if it was made on a budget of 10 million, made 80 million worldwide, that's like a $100 million movie making $800 million worldwide. Yeah. That's pretty substantial, from a
absolutely
performance point of view. Okay, so let's talk about the cast a little bit, because it is a pretty deep cast, but most of these people, I didn't know who they were, I'll be honest. But Jason Statham, I want to talk about that guy for a minute, because I think of this guy as kind of a B-movie guy. The only real movies I've seen him in are, my son made me watch this movie called The Meg, about this giant shark. Oh, it sucked. And then he made me take him to the movie theater to see the sequel, The Meg 2.
Oh, it was terrible.
Oh, it was awful. So I just think of that guy, like, isn't he like an action hero kind of thing now or something like that?
Well, that was sort of how he made his bones, right? Like, this was one of his early movies, and then he had the Transporter series, and he did I think he did one called The Machinist or The Mechanic, and he did a couple of those. He was in The Expendables, apparently, all four movies of The Expendables, and now he's in the Fast and the Furious franchise, and he's done a lot of, like, just single one-offs where he's like either law enforcement person, a retired special forces person, a criminal who's trying to get back on the straight and narrow, who has some skills. Like, he's sort of that almost like a generic sort of everyman action hero guy, where you sort of watch it. A lot of people are like, oh, I know that guy. I like that guy. Like, I like him. I think he's pretty good. Like, I've seen a lot of his movies, and honestly, they're decent, but when someone says, oh, have you seen blah, blah, blah with Jason Statham? I'm like, I have no idea. You got to show me the trailer, because they all sort of blend together, because they're all kind of the same. But every now and then he does one where you're like, wow, this was really good. And like, he's in a new one now that just came out called The Beekeeper, which I believe when Greg Martin was on the show, he said he saw and it was terrible. But when it comes on to Amazon or Netflix or wherever, I'm like, I can't wait to watch it. I'm not paying $30 to see it in the theater, but I'll certainly watch it when I can get it on one of the streamers.
Yeah, I can only judge him from this film and from the Meg movies. Mm-hmm. So I would say I don't think he's a very good actor, but in this film, he seemed to kind of fit the part pretty well. I thought he was pretty well cast.
Yeah, exactly.
The casting overall was pretty good, I thought.
I thought so too.
Speaking of which, probably there was maybe two actors I thought were really, really good. Brad Pitt was one of them. I gotta say, I am actually jealous of Brad Pitt, because, like, the thing is, early in his career, like, I just thought he was just this good looking guy, but he is actually one hell of a talented actor. I think I first saw him probably in, like, Thelma and Louise, or maybe A River Runs Through It. I don't know which one of those two I saw first, but I remember seeing him and thinking, he's just a pretty face, but he has got some pretty slick acting chops. He's quite an actor. In this movie, though, you can't even understand what the hell he's saying pretty much the whole time. Like, do you think he was speaking gibberish, or do you think he actually had lines in the script and, like, he turned them into gibberish?
I mean, so I've seen this movie probably close to a dozen times in the last 20 years. And on this last one go through, I actually understood most of what he was saying, partly because I'd seen it enough times and I understood the context that helped considerably. So I think you're right. I think he was given a script with real words, but from what I understand, he was having a problem with the accent. And apparently in Guy Ritchie's previous movie, one of the things that a lot of the critics picked up on was that a lot of the actors were not doing the appropriate accents for wherever they were in London. So when he talked to Brad Pitt about that, and he was like, here, this is what I want you to do. We won't even worry about the accent. Go over the top and do this sort of pikey speak and just make it your own. And then And so this is what you got out of it. Now, I think I suggested that when you watch this, you watch it with subtitles.
It's funny because I did really struggle with the accents and dialects, but I was really struggling with the streaming service. It kept glitching, so I didn't dare go back out and put on the subtitles. I was gonna, but it kept glitching. And I thought, oh my God, it took me like 30 minutes just to get this thing going. And, so I didn't want to go back out in case it crashed again. But then about maybe halfway through, I had to take a break. The kids were calling me. Mm-hmm. By the way, you have no idea how difficult it is for me to actually sit and watch something straight through. It's pretty much impossible for me to do that. I always like at the top of the podcast, you're like, oh yes, this week I watched like 7 documentaries and I streamed 16 seasons of some show and I read a book and I went to the theater and saw like 2 films. And I'm like, I watched half an episode of Wheel of Fortune. Like, that's kind of the way it is. But so what I did was I did actually, after I took a break, I put the subtitles on. Totally better. I really wished I watched the whole film with the subtitles on. Probably would have made it a lot easier. So that was a good suggestion. I just wish I did it earlier. Another question I had about Brad Pitt. He takes his shirt off and he's got all these tattoos all over. Are those fake, you think, or real?
Oh, God, yeah. No. Those are all fake.
Because he had his shirt off in Fight Club, and he had tattoos there too.
Again,
I guess they're all different. Like,
I would think they're different. And this movie was sort of hot on the heels of Fight Club, so that's part of the reason. I mean, in Fight Club, he was so chiseled. Like you've never seen him that jacked before. So in this one, it was like he still looked like a guy who was in really good shape, but not nearly to the extent that he was in Fight Club. And actually, I read that he was sort of hesitant about taking the role right at first because he's like, well, I just did Fight Club, which is about fighting and boxing. And he goes, now you want me to play a boxer? And so again, Guy Ritchie was like, trust me, this is going to be a different kind of role for you. He's like, okay. So, and
it was. And then what was the other one that you made me watch a little while ago? I don't know if it was it True Romance he was in?
He was not in True Romance.
What was the one?
I think we did make you watch that.
He
was the drug guy.
Yeah. And again, like he seems to be able to pull off these.
That was it. Yeah.
Because he's so good looking, but he's able to pull off some of these kind of rub characters. Like, I don't know, he's pretty good. Okay, so Benicio del Toro is another one. He's always kind of creeped me out. That guy. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Just something about him just makes me I think he's just creepy. Now he won an Oscar for Traffic the same year as this movie. And
was it the same year? I knew he won for Traffic. I couldn't remember what year Traffic.
Yeah, it was in 2000.
I haven't seen Traffic in forever. I don't know how that holds up.
He was nominated again for supporting actor in 2003 for 21 Grams. So obviously
that movie was terrible.
Yeah, the Academy obviously likes the guy and thinks, and I guess he is a pretty talented actor. He just creeps me out. And then it was funny, like he's in the film. I expected him to be in the movie more. And then all of a sudden it's just like, he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. I'm like, did they just kill Benicio del Toro? Oh, okay. I guess that's where this is going, and it's fine. So I mentioned that Brad Pitt was one of my favorite actors in the movie. I also liked the guy that played the gangster. Maybe we'll come back to him in a second. But I think the other one that really stood out to me was Dennis Farina.
Yeah. Again, not in a lot of it, but he was good.
Oh, man. Probably one of the best parts of the movie. But he has always been a character actor. I don't know all that much about him and his work. Although funny, just this past weekend, I took my 2 boys to go and visit their grandma. And she's like, oh, let's watch an old movie together. And she put on Little Big League. I'd never seen it before. And Dennis Farina was in that. We just watched it like 3 days ago. So that's right. I love the recurring bit in this film with him where at the beginning, he's in New York and he has to fly to London and he takes a shot and the plane flies and the passport gets stamped. And suddenly he's in London and he's yelling at the guy. He's like, shut up and sit down, you big bald like, it was just so funny when he delivered that line. And the fact that they basically take like 12 or 14 hours and they just do it over like 3 seconds. So that was funny. And then when he goes back to New York, takes a shot, plane flies, passport gets stamped. And then suddenly he's at customs and LaGuardia, and they're like, anything to declare? Yeah, don't go to London. Yeah. That was a great line. And then, of course, the end of the film, they need to sell the diamond. That's when he's back in New York, and he takes a shot, plane flies, passport gets stamped, and the credits just roll. So I thought he was a big part of this film, and I thought he was really, really funny too. So I liked him. Any other actors kind of stand out to you?
The guy who played the main villain, the guy with the big glasses with the pig farm, Alan Ford, he played Bricktop.
Don't know him.
I'm not. I think I've seen him in some other British stuff, and but apparently I was reading they wanted Sean Connery for that role, and Sean Connery was interested, but he, again, because this was sort of a small movie by a relatively new director with a limited budget, he straight up told them, he goes, "You can't afford me," and he wasn't willing to take a pay cut. But apparently that was who they had originally wanted to play that part. But I think this guy did a great job, and I think you had enough people, like you said, you got Brad Pitt, Benicio del Toro, and Dennis Farina, who are probably names and faces that people are going to recognize outside of England a little more. I think if you had Sean Connery, it almost sort of overshadows the other characters. So I think that having a guy who was a little less famous in that part it was better for the overall movie. It didn't take away from the the fact that you have this huge cast. You're really not sure sort of like, which story am I supposed to be, what's the main story? Like, who am I following here? Like the one guy who played one of the two thieves, the guys who ran the pawn shop who tried to rob the bookie, the guy who played Saul, his name's Lenny James. He's been on, if I remember correctly, I think he's one of the guys who was in Walking Dead for years. Yeah. So I mean, and he's been in other
Morgan
stuff
in that show.
Yeah, and he's a good actor. I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff. So again, some of the people in this have gone on to continue to have success outside of like international success. I'm sure a lot of the people in this are quite well known in the British entertainment community, but obviously that's not
I agree with you. The lead bad guy with the big glasses, it should never have been Sean Connery in that role. This guy that they got was so much better, because that guy had to be like a badass and scary enough to feed you to the pigs, but he was also a little bit vulnerable too. He was vulnerable to getting taken a couple of times too. So I thought that was a really, really interesting character to me. So I thought that was really good. But I want to talk about the director. So Guy Ritchie. So you mentioned Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I've never seen that film. Is it any good?
If you like Snatch, I would suggest giving it a go. It's a very similar sort of style, similar sort of type of characters. I actually saw Snatch first and then went back and watched Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Which one do you like better, if you had to pick one?
Honestly, I've only seen Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels a couple of times, whereas I've seen Snatch, like I said, probably a dozen times. Probably Snatch I like better, in part just because it's a little more polished. I think that they had a little more talent working on it, whereas the first one was like a passion project. It's like, what do we need to do to get this off the ground? So you cut corners and you cast your friends, and so you don't necessarily get the same level of quality that you get. Like he ultimately went on to direct Robert Downey Jr. and Sherlock Holmes. Like by the time you're you got so much money and you got so much power behind you and so much help if you need it, that it changes you.
I wasn't really familiar with him. Like I say, I had never seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. He was married to Madonna. I think that's basically what I knew him for. He's not married to her anymore. No. They got divorced a while ago, before she got all that plastic surgery. I bet he'd walk right by her on the street.
Jeez. Yeah, no kidding.
Who the hell is this? Oh, you were married to her for 10 years. But I thought the direction was one of the best parts of this movie. Very stylistic.
Yeah.
When the movie starts out with those Hasidic Jews going into the building, and then they bust out the guns and you realize they're just in costume, and it goes into all these like quick pans and freeze frames. It's got all this kinetic energy to it. Kind of remind me of the beginning of Pulp Fiction, when Pumpkin and Honey Bunny just jump up and rob the diner. And then I like in Snatch how it goes into the title sequence. But the title sequence is different because it introduces the characters by their character name rather than the actors. I thought that was really, really cool. I like that part.
Well, and they had already introduced all the actor names on the closed caption televisions as the guys dressed up as the Jews were coming in.
Right.
And we, the audience, along with the security guard, are watching them. And now you mentioned Pulp Fiction. So this is interesting. One of the things that I picked up on, I read about it and then I picked up on it, was you notice those two guys, the dialogue that's happening. They're talking about the birth of Jesus, the Virgin Mary. And it's like that is probably more of a wink to the start of Reservoir Dogs, where they're talking about interpreting the song Like a Virgin by Madonna. So again, at this time, obviously Guy Ritchie was not involved with Madonna, but I was reading some things where they're like, that is very likely a deliberate sort of call out, a deliberate sort of, I'm gonna, give you that little wink that I can have fun with this topic as well in a very different way.
And this guy's definitely inspired by Tarantino.
Oh, no question.
Right down to like, hey, we're gonna bring out some saws and chop people up and feed them to pigs and stuff like that's kind of Tarantino kind of stuff. Also, similarities between this and Pulp Fiction are things like the intertwined storylines of all the characters and how they all kind of intersect. Also, the fact that it's about the underbelly of society, all these criminals that, are kind of, some of them are 2-bit criminals and stuff like that. So, and this one doesn't use that non-linear timelines to tell a story like Pulp Fiction does.
I think I had said that earlier. That was really what I misspoke there. It's more of that just constant back and forth between the characters.
Definitely had that frenetic energy to it at times, which I thought was good. Also want to mention the score. I thought it was pretty good, that jazzy score, especially when they were doing transitions between scenes. It reminded me of Ocean's 11. You mentioned Ocean's 11 before. And that's what reminded me of in this film.
It also, there was a lot of use of ska music, or music that was clearly influenced from ska music, where it was that new wave but reggae sort of sound, and it reminded me of a lot of music by like the band Madness. It may have even been some of their music, but then there was also intercuts with like other lesser known, lesser famous songs. Like there was the song Golden Brown was in there when he gets knocked out, and then the camera just sort of pulls up from the boxer and turns. It just like, it was really good. And the scene where the dogs are chasing the rabbit, and it's got like that, it almost sounds like Daft Punk. It's not. I had to look it up. It was an artist I wasn't familiar with, but just the use of the score, the use of the actual music that are like real songs in this thing. Yeah, no, it was very, very well done. It worked well. And again, I think that is, again, reminding me of Tarantino, where he'll often pull these more obscure songs out and use them in his movies, and you're just like, that's perfect. I could never imagine this scene without it.
And there was the one scene when in one of the fights where Brad Pitt gets hit, and then he kind of like floats slowly backwards in the air. It reminded me of, was it Street Fighter? What was the... Yeah,
like a video game almost.
The video game. It was like that. Really stylistic and that was kind of cool. Again, I thought the direction was one of the best parts.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing that kind of stood out to me watching this movie, people will bet on anything.
Oh my God, yes.
Like, as a sports bettor myself, I like betting on, specific things in sports. But in this film, it's like this obscure random fist fight. Like, it's not even like a sanctioned heavyweight bout. It's Brad Pitt in a bare knuckle brawl. Reminded me of like Philo Beto from Any Which Way You Can.
Yep.
People in this movie bet on it. They bet on dog fights, They bet on, like you mentioned, the rabbit, if it can escape from the dogs. Just, oh man, that whole underbelly of society. They just bet on everything. And most of it's all crooked too. And,
of course.
And that's going back to that mobster guy. What was it? Bricktop was his name? The bad guy with the glasses.
Yeah, Bricktop. Yeah.
I like how he's all about fixing fights. But in the end, it's Brad Pitt who goes around secretly betting on himself to win, and he makes a fortune off of it.
Yeah.
And Bricktop tries to get his cronies in on the action because he's like telling them, Brad Pitt's going to go down in the fourth. So, with all the action, on the betting, the odds swing to Brad Pitt. Like, you're a bettor like I am. The lines move according to the betting tendencies. Yep. So Brad Pitt just takes advantage of it, bets on himself, wins a ton of money. So, in the end, it's like this poor, uneducated rube that wins the day. Or what do they call them? Gypsies, or would you say they call them pikeys or something, right?
Pikeys, yeah. Which I'm sure, I know gypsy is not considered a PC term, and I'm sure pikey is probably not either. But I mean, that's how they refer to them in the movie, so we'll call them that for better or for worse. My apologies if that's really offensive.
Yeah. My dad used to call people like that rubs. He used to, I don't know what it meant, but I used to have to deal with them when I used to manage a bar. And then my dad's like, oh, those guys are rubs. So yeah, I don't know.
I was gonna say one other. We've been comparing him to Tarantino. So again, there's that parallel between Pulp Fiction where Bruce Willis's character is the boxer who, once there's a fix is in, he bets on himself and does the other way. So again, I'm sure that's not a random coincidence. I'm sure that was very deliberate, like sort of an homage and an inspiration. So yeah.
Oh my God! One other thing I really loved was that Boris guy. So I think he's just kind of like an inconsequential character, but then all of a sudden he just won't die. Mm-hmm. He gets hurt in that car crash, and then he stumbles out the road and gets hit head on by a car, and then he gets shot like 7 or 8 times. He just keeps going, and he's like Mustafa in Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. He's just off camera and you can hear him and he will not die. And the guy just keeps shooting him. And he's like, he's still alive. What the hell?
Well, remember, his nickname is the Bullet Dodger. So I think that was supposed to be a little bit of a play on that as well.
I guess he just can take so many bullets. So I thought that was pretty funny. So anything else about this film that we should talk about before we give it a rating?
Well, I just want to say, I think one of my favorite scenes and my favorite parts of the movie, and I was talking to my wife about this, was when the two guys go to meet the Pikeys after the first fight's gone down, and he's like, okay, they're trying to convince Brad Pitt to do it. It's a scene where they've got the 2 dogs that are chasing after the rabbit, and he's like, he goes, he wants the caravan. He goes, it's got to be Periwinkle Blue, because that's what his mom wants, Periwinkle Blue. And then he's like, they're negotiating. He's like, oh, but we wanted to buy the caravan for you. He's like, I want this. He goes, I'll bet you for it. And he's like, if he goes, if I win, I get the caravan, Periwinkle Blue. He goes, if you win, I'll do the fight for free. And then he goes, and you got to throw in a pair of damn shoes. And you look down, and then the camera pans down, and the guys who put plastic bags over their shoes so they won't get. Oh my God! Even though I knew it was coming, between the delivery from Brad Pitt and then the pan down to the shoes, I laughed so much at that. And then it cuts to the scene with the dog chase, and then you've got the dogs chasing the rabbit in the parallel scene with the gangsters chasing after Tyrone. Yes. And it's like, oh, okay. So again, it was just that whole sequence is so good, and I just that one, just the delivery about it. You gotta throw in a pair of damn shoes. It just made me laugh so much.
So what would you give it a rating out of 10?
Give it a solid 8.
You know what's funny? I think I would give it an 8 as well. It was quite good. And you know me, I'm usually pretty conservative on giving it. If it's not like an 80s comedy, I won't go that high. But this one, I give it 8. I was thinking about like 7.5, and I thought the more I think about it, it's quite good. I think I would give it an 8. This is a film, funny enough, you and I have talked about this multiple times. And I'm always like, okay, these movies that you make me watch, I'm one and done. I can watch them, don't need to watch them again. This is one I think I need to watch again just because there was a lot going on, especially in the first half of the film, that I kind of struggled with a bit. Maybe, again, I needed those subtitles on. But I was kind of struggled with some of the characters and trying to piece it all together and figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and the fact there was a little bit of a double cross, if you sort of know that's coming, it's not like a Sixth Sense kind of thing where you go back and you're like, oh my God, the clues are so obvious when you know. But there are some little things happening where you're like, if you sort of know the outcome, you can see some threads where you're like, okay, you wouldn't pick up on it the first time through, and you probably weren't expected to. But it's that's the thing. And again, there's just so many characters. To your point, the first time through, the first 20 minutes, you're just trying to make sense of who's who and how do these people know each other and how are they related? Are these guys friends or are these guys enemies? So yeah, it wouldn't. I think you'd probably get a lot out of it a second time through. I mean, you don't have to watch again right now, but even in a year or two, like just knowing enough and remembering enough about it, I think you'd get enough out of it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Okay, so on that note, what do you say we have some
fun with Caveman?
I know last time out, I said that we play this game too much, but I just couldn't resist going back to the well one more time this week. Pick the flick. Yeah, pick the flick. You get the synopsis, then pick the flick. You get the year, pick the flick. So as I mentioned, this week's movie, Snatch, sounds like a title you'd find on Pornhub. So this week's edition of Pick the Flick are all films that sound dirty, but they're really not.
Okay. I thought you were going to do that porno movie thing like we did for Gladiator, which was great to do, but even better to listen to with all the bleeps in it.
Oh, yeah, it was really great. It was, I believe is what it was. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you the year and the synopsis, and then you give me the title that sounds dirty, but really isn't. Okay? So 2001. An unemployed cartoonist moves back in with his parents and younger brother, Freddie. When his parents demand he leave, he begins to spread rumors that his father is sexually abusing Freddie.
And that would be the Tom Green film, Freddie Got Fingered.
There you go. All right. 1983. This one's right in my wheelhouse, obviously. 1983. A fake Fabergé egg recovered from the body of a fellow British Secret Service agent leads a spy to uncover a jewel smuggling operation headed by the mysterious female protagonist and a plot to blow up a NATO airbase.
Yeah, this was Octopussy.
All right, 2001, the story of how George Jung, along with the Medellin cartel headed by Pablo Escobar, established the American cocaine market in the 1970s in the United States.
Oh, did this one have Johnny Depp? Was it called Blow?
That was it. Dirty sounding name, but really wasn't. Okay, 1999, after wandering off during a White House tour, 2 high school girls inadvertently become Richard Nixon's top secret advisors at the height of the Watergate scandal.
Yeah, this movie was called Dick.
Don't know why that's a dirty sounding name. Anyway, 2006, a God-fearing blues man takes to a wild young woman who, as a victim of childhood sexual abuse, looks everywhere for love, never quite finding it.
Huh. That doesn't sound familiar at all. I have no idea.
Black Snake Moan.
Oh, okay.
All right, 2002. The U.S. government recruits extreme sports athlete Xander Cage to infiltrate a Russian criminal ring which is plotting the destruction of the world.
This is actually pretty good. Triple X.
All right, 2005. When an affluent couple lose all their money following a series of blunders, they turn to a life of crime to make ends meet.
Was this one just called Sex Tape?
No, I'm sorry. It was Fun with Dick and Jane.
Oh, yes.
All right, 1999. Again, keep in mind, the title's got to kind of sound dirty. Okay, 1999, a lazy law school graduate adopts a kid to impress his girlfriend, but everything doesn't go as planned.
Right. That's Big Daddy.
Big Daddy. Again, title on Pornhub, possibly. 1997, a federal agent uncovers lucrative toxic waste dumps in Appalachia and must deal with the locals who want to keep their gold mine secret.
I don't know. Doesn't sound familiar.
Fire Down Below.
Oh, my God. With Steven Seagal. Yeah.
1993, when a boy learns that a beloved killer whale is to be killed by the aquarium owners, the boy risks everything to free the whale.
Yeah. That one's Free Willy.
Indeed. Sounds like a film you'd watch in Times Square. All right, 1968, a down on his luck inventor turns a broken down Grand Prix car into a fancy vehicle for his children, and they go off on a magical fantasy adventure to save their grandfather in a far off land.
I got to be careful here. Make sure I actually say the name of the real movie and not the one that I think it should be called. Is it Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Why? What do you think it should be called?
Oh, I think one of those bangs might be a different word that sounds similar.
Oh, okay. And the last one, 2006. A police detective, a bank robber, and a high-power broker enter high-stakes negotiations after the criminal's brilliant heist spirals into a hostage situation.
Wow. It sounds like a movie I would enjoy. Is it The Italian Job?
No, again, the title's got to kind of sound
that
dirty.
sounds dirty.
Inside Man.
Oh, yeah. We did that one on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the title. I mean, like just use your imagination, I guess. Okay, so you did pretty good. You got a lot of them. You missed a couple. Okay, so it's over to me to pick a movie for next time out. This movie, Snatch, was the thing was it was an action film, but it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of black humor in it, so I felt like I wanted to kind of do something similar along those lines. But I got to go back to my wheelhouse. So we'll go back to 1987, and we're gonna watch RoboCop.
Nice.
So we're going to watch RoboCop. I haven't seen it in probably 30 years. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it, and then we'll come back here and talk about it. So you've obviously seen RoboCop, no question.
I have not seen it in a while, but I love this movie. I have the Criterion Collection DVD somewhere with all the special features and stuff, but no, I love this movie. This movie
you're more of a fan of this than I am. I just thought it'd be a lot of fun to go back and watch it.
It is so over the top violent. It is everything that 80s action movies were.
Right.
Like this was it, and it was a hard R restricted. Like it is so violent. I'm looking forward to going back and rewatching it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to remember. I don't remember it being that violent. I remember it being kind of like cartoony, but it'll be interesting. Like I say,
probably by today's standards, it will seem a little bit cartoony, but in the moment, it was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're going to watch RoboCop from 1987, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime if you'd like to watch it before you come back and listen. And until then, I'm Chris McBrien, that's Derek Myers, and we're both saying thanks for taking the time to listen to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.